Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 3. My name is Mildred. In this lesson, we are going to look at software requirement specification, and we're going to go further in the next lesson to look at how to write documentations and technical writing and the role that they play in software development. At the end of this lesson, we hope that you will be able to create a software requirement, a specification document, and you'll be able to structure that document to be able to create a fully functional software. Now, a software requirement specification is a document that serves as a blueprint, and this blueprint is used by all stakeholders. Our stakeholders here are the customers, the developers, the testers, and the end users. The document describes what the software should do and how that software should perform. And so when you see a software requirement specification, you will get something like the functional and the non-functional requirements. Now, when we talk about the functional requirements, we're talking about all the things that the system can do. Like a user can log in, a user can create accounts, a user can log in some details. Those are functionalities, and they are categorized under functional requirements. And then we have non-functional requirements. This does not have anything to do with the functionality of the system, but rather things like performance, security, and then we have things like the compliance standard, and all of this you can put other constraints. While there is no one fixed way of writing your specification document, there is an outline that you can follow that guides you to make sure that every topic that needs to be is covered within your requirement specification. Right? So let's say that we want to create a diabetes, A1C logs and alert system, for instance. And when we want to write a software requirement specification for a system like that, we want to first of all understand all the terms, what we're supposed to do. You need to have a little bit of domain knowledge, and that's where all the meetings with the stakeholders come in. The next thing we want to do is to now follow an outline. We want to define an introduction. In this introductory part of our document, we might want to state things like the purpose of the document. Basically, you want to write a document so that whoever picks it up is able to understand the app you're trying to build and everything it covers. And so when you want to put all of the things it covers, you put the scope. You're not putting, like, the scope will now cover things like exactly what it will do, record A1C test. So if you don't put the scope, it will be like you want to start from the diabetes diagnosis, which is not part of the scope. So you need to define a clear scope also, and then you want to give some definitions of some terms. For instance, what A1C is alert level A1C, what A1C is controlled, what A1C is a normal range, and things like that. So you want to define all of this stuff. Then you might want to have references. For instance, when you do this definition and you have maybe like the American Diabetes Association guidelines, or you have something like the HIPAA compliance guidelines, you want to add all these references. Then we'll come to the description. Now, while I'm using this hypothetical app as an example, you can think about an app and then you now follow this structure in the things you want to put. You can add more subheadings and more content, but basically you want to have this introduction that states the purpose, the scope, definitions that defines the boundaries of the things that you are doing, and then maybe you put references for all what you have done. It's not compulsory. Then you can now start describing the product. So maybe you start with the product perspective. On this place you want to talk about if it's a standalone system, accessible on mobile, is it going to be via mobile apps like Android and iOS, or just web platform? Okay, does it use cloud storage? So all of those things will come under the product part setting. Now, who are the users of the system? You want to define some user classes and the characteristics. For instance, you can say we have patients with diabetes is a user class. What are their characteristics? It is possible that you have patients that will have limited technical literacy. You also have healthcare providers who may or may not use the system. If they are to use the system, maybe the patients would have sent or shared a report with the provider. And then we'll have like caregivers or family members, maybe if authorized, can get alerts also, so things like that. Then you want to put something like the operating environment. Is it a mobile app? Is it going to be a web app? What would the backend be like? Is it like cloud-based REST API kind of stuff? And then you want to say, let's look at the implementation constraints, for instance. All right, and some of the constraints would be like the healthcare guidelines. Must it comply with any data privacy laws? And the alerts, how do you want it to work? Do you want it to work in real time, with or without internet access? You understand? So things like this will be there, and stakeholders can read this and give a proof of concept that yes, this is what we want. Then you now delve into the functional requirements. Now it's now that you clearly spell out the functionalities of that app or that system. And you write things like the system will allow users to log A1C values with date and time, or the system will allow users to edit their entries or delete their entries, allow users to be able to download Excel file or to send PDF format of the file to provider, or it will allow them to be able to or support authentication and data encryption. Things like that are going to come under functional requirements. Then we have non-functional requirements, and this one is everything that makes the system operate but doesn't deal with the functionality. Like you say, you want it to be available 99% of the time. You want it to respond to user actions within 1 second. You want the secure transmission must only be through HTTPS, all right? And maybe what standard do you want to use for HIPAA, or what standard do you want to use for data storage? Maybe you want to say, well, we keep with HIPAA standard for transmitting the health records. Then now we talk about the interfaces. You have different user interface. Do you want to have a form where the user can log in their A1C? You want to have maybe a dashboard with charts and summary, or maybe the notification settings. And so these are like in different interfaces. Then you look at hardware interfaces that you can say maybe for future versions you want it to be able to connect with Bluetooth enabled glucose meters or things like that. And then we'll look at software interfaces if you want integration, maybe using AWS for backend services, things like that. Now look at different communication interfaces. Do you want push notifications? Do you want email notifications? So different interfaces. And then the appendices will have attachment of anything you want. Maybe the sample A1C chart ranges, maybe a sample of charts, consent and data sharing policies, and you have a whole chart of different medical terms. So these are the things that you want to have when you create a software requirement specification. Now we use the diabetes A1C logs and alert system as an example, but basically you can use this outline to prepare a requirements document. So you can head on today to imagine an app, think about an app, maybe an online shop, and then write a software requirement specification document for this shop. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.